seems, Aya, the army is losing members almost arm over fist when it comes to this, and not through stress, but through drug taking. Can we understand why there's so many pressures?
Well, that goes without saying. We've had two wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's depleted or taken a lot out of the soldiers, clearly, to the extent that some of them are suffering psychological, emotional damage. And of course, they've got to turn to things like drugs, and as the worst sort as well, cocaine, you know, and it stays longer in your bodies. So I can see why they would turn to things like that. But I think we've got to look at this holistically. Why is it that the MOD, at this junction, to start doing a lot of testing? Okay, soldiers throughout, as far as I could remember, have always taken drugs or turned to drugs or alcohol or when they come back from the theatre. That's the battle theatre, that is. And is it that the MOD has got a different shift in terms of how they want to deal with the soldiers? Do they want to get less soldiers in the army? Is this an opportunity for them to get rid of a whole bunch? Is it that they're trying to retreat from Iraq? I mean, we've got to look at this, you know, so it's highly possible that there's been a change in strategy. They don't need that many soldiers anymore. Let's just find a way to get rid of half of them, and then come up with this testing, because they know very well they've been taking drugs, and it's a shame, really.
But proportionally, Phil, if we tested most workplaces in Europe, you would find similar statistics.
Well, it's estimated that 5 million people in Britain use controlled drugs, and these are left in the bloodstream for, in some periods, weeks. You know, cannabis, you know, you can tell from hair samples. So I think if people look at, you know, anybody's use of these substances, you'd find that large numbers of people, certainly, you know, in the media in Britain, I mean, I'd say that there would be, you know, significantly more if everyone was tested than those in the army. But I think, you know, I just add to that, you know, the people I know in the British forces, and I've interviewed many who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, they feel they don't know why they're fighting there. And I think that any war, if people can believe in what they're doing, any soldier is going to feel that he's doing a worthwhile job. But if he doesn't actually know in his heart what he's doing there, then it's going to lead to the kind of stresses and post-traumatic stress disorders and possibly drug abuse that we've heard about.
And for something like this, Moin, are we talking about mismanagement on a cataclysmic scale by the MOD?
Yes, of course. Having said that, there is a thing called a just war, and a soldier needs to believe that he is fighting for not just his country, but a good cause, a just cause. It's quite clear that, you know, these guys are not robots. They're humans with feelings, and you know, they don't believe. Well, put it this way: there are signs, clear signs, evidence that they do not believe in what they are being told to do, which is basically keep down a free people, a very proud people in Afghanistan and Iraq.
You wanted to come in there.
Yes, Amina, I think we've got to look at it from the perspective that when someone takes drugs or turns to alcohol, usually it's a cry for help. So if we've got officers, soldiers in large numbers turning to drugs, they're asking for help. We shouldn't be sacking them. We should be trying to offer them therapy and support and guidance through this difficult time in their lives. And to just be telling them that you're out of the army, that's the worst possible thing, because more than likely they will turn to the drugs and live on the drugs for a significant long period of their lives. And as we know, drugs affect not only the individuals, but also the ramification of family members around them.
All right, well, let's keep on the military too, but with a slightly different emphasis. Cast your mind back to the summer. We had the capture of the Royal Navy sailors and those from the Royal Marines. Now, this was an embarrassment. We were talking about the kind of shame that a military leader hopes never to have to deal with under their watch. Now the report is out. It's being made public in some areas, and it's being called a national embarrassment here. But a lot of what's being picked upon is the way in which a lot of these service personnel were allowed to sell their story. Are we using that to cover up what happened in August?
Yes, definitely. You know, we're in a media age. You know, pictures sell, and you know, truth is often sidetracked in the process. Indeed, that's a key issue. The truth on that matter. The reality is, if you quote or look at the research of Craig Murray, I'm sure you know of him, ex-ambassador, British ambassador to Uzbekistan. He also worked in the Foreign Office. He clearly shows, based on evidence from British government archives, that the Brits ourselves had gone astray. They weren't meant to be where they were. And also the very fact they didn't have a mothership leads to questions. Why were they put there? You've got to look at all this in the context of the ongoing crisis or crisis management with Iran.
And in all of this, we're going to touch on Iran here in response to the Russia situation. The fact that Russia agreed that finally they will make public a timetable when the Bushehr nuclear plant will be built. Is it coincidental some of these things are coming together at the same time, Phil?
Well,
is there such a thing as coincidence in the press anymore?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I think, going back to the British Marines and sailors, I think that certainly they sold their stories because I think some people felt that they could turn a debacle into a hero story, as the Americans tried to do once or twice when certain, people were shot or injured in the war in Iraq. So I think they tried to do that, and it all went wrong. I mean, obviously, the British military is overstretched. It was from a military point of view, absolutely disaster. And then you say, well, what are the British doing there? Iran is on one side. Then you've got people who are basically very supportive of Iran on the other side, the Shias in Iraq. So what are the British trying to do there? What is their role? It just showed it up completely that they had no role in southern Iraq.
Do you think any lessons have been learned by this quickly, Io?
Yes, the lessons are that the army or the sailors should not have been there by themselves. There should be a mothership which would protect them. There should have been better communications. Logistics was poor, and generally their means of engaging with the enemy, as it was perceived then, should also be looked at, because they gave up very easily as it was perceived back then. And of course, coming back, how they dealt with the soldiers themselves. On one hand, they shouldn't have sold their stories. On another hand, they were given full permission to do so. Why did that happen? And of course, on the back end of this report coming out, why is it that at this junction the report cannot be offered to myself and you to read and understand exactly what actually transpired? So there's a lot of lessons there.
But who is the enemy? That's the point. I mean, Iran is presented, it's demonized in the press as an enemy. Well, I'm not aware we're at war with Iran. I mean, so, that's in the end, I think, a fundamental question is what on earth they're doing there.
Well, we've only got 1 minute on this last story, but it's a quick one. In the Telegraph, Hillary sacks aide for drug slur against Obama. It seems one of her men spoke out of turn. Did they, Phil?
Well, I think she's worried that Obama is offering something refreshing in American politics, something out of Washington, and I think she's worried now.
Can a brother win, Io?
Yes, absolutely spot on. He's got the best chance that any other black person have ever had, with the support of who was it the other day? The lady from
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey. Fantastic lady who's got a lot of respect within the American society, putting a claim behind him. He's got a fantastic chance, and I think Hillary is scared.
Maheen, last word on this one, and it's literally a word. Has he got a chance? Yes or no?
Possibly, but this
I like that. And on that very unguarded note, we must wrap up and thank our guests. They were, of course, Phil Reeves, an award-winning journalist turned broadcaster, Maheen Yassin, the managing director of Pan-Islamic Organization Global Vision 2000 Limited, and broadcaster Io Johnson. And thank you for watching. You can catch the repeats. It's 23:34 and 3:34 GMT. Email all your comments to us at bth@presstv.co.uk. Join my colleague Jan Fosgaard tomorrow night at the same time for the weekend edition of Between the Headlines. Good night.